Hi, I'm Jon Delano, Money and Politics Editor, KDKA Television, CBS Pittsburgh. And our very, very special guest today is Pennsylvania State Representative Summer Lee, who is the Democratic candidate for the U.S. House of Representatives in the 12th Congressional District. Representative Lee, always good to be with you. Thank you for spending time with me.
Of course. Thanks for having me. It's good to see you.
So we are just slightly less than 5 weeks until Election Day, although folks are maybe starting to vote by mail-in shortly. So
Absolutely.
what's the state of the campaign in the 12th district from your perspective?
Yes. Oh my goodness. So today, like you said, today is election day. Every day is going to be election day until November 8th. So we are really just moving into our GOTV, our get out the vote period, right? Our campaign is still excited. We're energized. We're out talking to voters, knocking doors, and excited about these last few weeks, and even more excited about the end because it's been a year.
Well, I know it's been a long haul. It always is for candidates for Congress. And no sooner does it finish than you start all over again. But let me just ask you, what are the big issues in your district that you see?
Oh, certainly. Obviously, I mean, not just in our district, but state and nationwide, the fall of Roe v. Wade has really been just a critical and important issue, right? Especially with our state legislature, our state legislature, abortion access has really played a key role over the last few months. That, of course, is still joined by so many of the other issues we have. Job creation and infrastructure are still issues, right? Housing is an issue in our district. Education, those are things that folks are still thinking about every single day. Of course, folks are, really just looking to how are they going to get and where are they going to get relief. So those are the things that we've been hearing and seeing.
Representative, I've seen on I think some of your social media posts. You participated in a program I think that identified you and a number of others as the most progressives in the Congress with your election coming up. And it does raise the question, because your opponent raises this, that you're not only progressive but that you're a socialist. Are you?
I would like to know how people even define socialists. Look, the reality is from day one, I've been so upfront about what I'm fighting for, what the movement that's connected to us has been fighting for. And the truth is that we've been very clear. We're fighting for working class people, for labor, for unions and living wage. We're fighting for housing. We're fighting for equitable education and opportunity. Those are the things that we're fighting for. Those are the things that we are very upfront about. So labels, folks have labeled me various things. We take it, we keep moving. But as long as people know what we're standing for and what we're fighting for, I think that is actually really the more important thing.
Well, let me ask you just directly, is it your intention to be part of the squad if you're elected to Congress?
That's a really good question. It is my intention to work with every single member who is working to advance the issues that we so desperately care about, right, and are so desperately fighting for in the 12th congressional district, right? That would, and I truly do believe that will include the progressives, the squad, that will include the Black Caucus, that would include members who are less progressive, right? Some of our more moderate and conservative members, as we are working together, whether it be on infrastructure or whether it be on climate justice and environmental justice. I am looking to partner with all those folks who are moving in the direction that we are.
It's a little strange, but there is an ad that's running on television that is purportedly against Chris Deluzio, your colleague who is running in a district next door to you. But it seems to feature you more than it does Deluzio. First, before I ask you about the specifics, what's your reaction to this ad from the Congressional Leadership Fund?
It's annoying, but I guess it makes total sense, right? We expected that. We knew that was to come, right? The NRCC, right? The Republican, the National Republicans campaign arm, they signal early on that this was a race that they would love to kind of try to poke and prod in. And of course helps that have a candidate that shares the same exact name as the outgoing congressman. So all of those cards kind of align for them to try to kind of kill two birds with one stone, as it were. And also, I'm used to being a target, right? There's been a concerted effort, in our just political system, right, to try to make not just me, but the movement that we represent, the constituents that we represent, kind of a pariah in our political system. Make it harder for folks who truly do align with us to be public and to be outward, and really trying to, hurt Chris with guilt by association. But Chris is his own candidate. He's his own man. He is working his district, and he's standing on his record. He's standing on his values, and it would be great if they focused on that over in that district.
It appears as if they're more focused on you in that ad, and I wanted to ask you about two lines that they quote you. First of all, they have you on camera saying these words: "Policing as we know it is no longer necessary," quote unquote. It's Summer Lee saying that. What did you mean by that?
Certainly. Honestly, I don't remember what the entire context is, because as those ads go, they rarely play the entire thing or even signal to viewers where they are pulling it from. But if I could imagine, and what we've been talking about is, what does policing look like post George Floyd, post Trayvon Martin, post Antoine Rose II, right? Which is a case that we saw here in our own backyard. And there has been a national conversation about how do we address the inequities, the discrimination, the racial biases in policing. And that is not something that we can afford to shy away from. It's an uncomfortable conversation, but the reality is that if we are going to be honest about addressing public safety, about addressing crime, then as politicians, as local political and movement leaders, we should focus on the root of that. And that's not increased policing in marginalized communities, but instead it's increased funding to schools in those districts. It's increased opportunities through jobs that pay a family sustaining wage, just addressing the social determinants of crime. And I think that if we put more effort and resource and energy into that endeavor, I think that it would pay dividends and quite more than continuing on pretending that policing doesn't have systemic concerns.
Your opponents, of course, say that you want to defund the police. Do you want to defund the local police in this area?
I want to do precisely what I just laid out. The Republicans, the national Republicans, have made it a point to say that every Democrat wants to destroy policing, and it's to deflect away from that very serious conversation that we're having. The reality is that Black and brown folks are disproportionately killed, when they are unarmed or when they are not non-threatening by police officers. And we can talk about how dangerous a job that is. Those are conversations that we can have. But that statistic still stands. And we know that there is a direct correlation there. And to address that is not the problem. To address that is actually the solution. And what I talked about, addressing crime and poverty at its root, there is a direct correlation between poverty and crime. Addressing those will alleviate policing. It will make that job safer. It'll make communities safer. For all the folks who push tough on crime narratives, they're soft on action, right? They're soft on actually funding and investing in the programs, the policies, the wraparound services that will actually accomplish that. And they use police as a scapegoat. And it's not fair to police, and it's not fair to our communities, and it's not fair to our political system.
The other attack line on you, Representative Lee, in that ad is, quote, they have you saying this, quote, "I believe in prison abolition." Do you really want to abolish all prisons?
I want to work toward getting the United States with the rest of the world. Right now, the United States incarcerates more people per capita than anywhere else on the globe, right? And we have to ask ourselves, in the wealthiest country on earth, on what so many folks consider the most developed country on earth, or do we believe about ourselves that we are just more prone to criminality? And I don't believe that we are more prone to criminality. I believe that we don't invest in, again, those wraparound services. I don't believe we invest in people, that we invest in that social infrastructure that would alleviate crime, that would lift people out of poverty and out of dangerous and desperate situations. And I think that when we look at our policing, we use prisons as a scapegoat. We use prisons as schools. In lieu of schools, we invest in prisons. Our private prison system has run amok in this country. There's a direct correlation between our carceral system today and the 13th Amendment, which of course abolished slavery for all but those instances where a person commits a crime. So yes, I think that we should look at it the exact same way that we looked at abolishing slavery. And that's not to say that we want folks who commit crimes or do heinous things to go unaccounted. Right? We want accountability. We want rehabilitation. We want to make sure that people who could otherwise contribute to our society are able to do that, and otherwise need help are able to get that help. But that help doesn't always look like a cage.
Finally, I wanted to ask you about what makes this race, I think, interesting to many, is the fact that even though it's a Democratic district with a capital D, I think plus 20, Joe Biden won by 20 points in this district. The fact is that the Republican nominee has the same name as the outgoing Congressman, Mike Doyle. Is that a concern to you?
I mean, I think it should be a concern. It's a concern to voters, right? The reality is that we want an electoral system. We want a race where voters are able to access information, appropriate information, and make informed decisions. And there are going to be a number of voters who won't be able to distinguish the difference between this Mike Doyle, who was a Republican, and our Mike Doyle, who was the Democratic incumbent for 26 years. And so few folks maybe know or realize that he's retired. There are a lot of people who pay attention to politics because they live and they breathe it. But a lot of folks who aren't able to do that, they're not afforded that sort of access. They're going about their days, and right now they're getting their mail-in ballots, and all they see is Summer Lee versus Mike Doyle. And I think that it should be a concern for our political system, right? It should be a concern because we want voters to vote on issues. We want them to vote for the candidate. We don't want them to vote for a gimmick.
Do you think Mike Doyle, the Republican, is hiding the fact that he's a Republican?
I have no idea. I don't actually know Mike Doyle, the Republican. I've not had the opportunity to meet him yet. I do think it's interesting that, I don't know. Obviously, I've not seen his birth certificate, but if his name is Michael, he could have easily have used Michael Doyle. He could have used the middle initial if he wanted to distinguish himself from the outgoing representative. There are so many things that we could do to cut back on confusion. There are ways to advertise that I'm a different person and I stand on different values and different issues. If he believes in those issues, I hope that over the next 30 so days that he will take the opportunities to do that.
Well, he also says that he is a bipartisan individual, that he's been on Plum Borough Council. He has a history, he says, of working with Democrats, and that he's not, part of a right-wing agenda. Do you buy that?
Again, I can't speak to I can't speak to his intentions, but I know what the Republican Party stands for today. There is a huge fight for the soul of our democracy, for the soul of what American society will look like as we're coming out of COVID-19, as we're coming out of racial and economic huge racial and economic injustices, and we're trying to craft that space. And people are picking sides, and he has picked one. He has picked the side of a party that participated in an insurrection. He's picked the side of a party. He's introduced candidates who align very closely with the former president, who, of course, helped and really pushed on that insurrection and is continuing to really incite violence, incite a lot of discord. And he's not distanced himself from that. So, of course, it's easy to say everyone is bipartisan over something. Everybody works and votes with, the other side with something. But in those moments where it matters most, where will you stand? And right now, with our democracy on the line, with abortion care and access on the line, we need folks who are going to be very clear about standing on the other side and doing everything that they can to stop that side from further eroding our democracy and our rights.
Well, State Representative Summer Lee, it's always a great pleasure to be with you, the Democratic candidate for U.S. House in the 12th Congressional. Thank you so much for spending time with us today. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.